My name is Dr. Marie-Louise Crawley, and I'm a researcher from the Centre for Dance Research at Coventry University, and I'm delighted to be in conversation today with Dr. Frieda Berlekamp, who's a researcher from the Institute of Museum Research in Germany, and who's been leading on the institutional heritage pilot for the REACH project. And she's going to tell us a little bit this morning about the project's, the pilot findings for institutional heritage. So welcome, Frieda.
Hello, Marie-Louise.
Hi, could you start by telling us about the research context for the institutional heritage pilot in terms of methodologies and participatory approaches that you used?
Yeah, I choose two very important key points of the REACH project for my study, and one point was the social cohesion, which REACH want to foster, and the other point was the relevance of cultural heritage. And here in the institutions, it's a very complex concept, the cultural heritage, the relevance of it, because it doesn't concern just the material culture, but also the intangible culture, and including the institution itself, its practice, its history, and its narratives, and also the communities which are constituent for the museums, for the institution. So have a really multiple context in the institution. And yes, and this pilot took place in a very historic moment, because at the same time the ICOM, the International Council of Museums, is discussing the definition of a museum. They want to change the institution, or are thinking about the change of the institution to be more actual in the 21st century. And what we see in this discussion is that the part of the audience, the public, is coming more, or is going to come more important, and that the museums or the institutions are thinking how to interact with the audiences, how to include the audience in their work, how can they work with the people, for the people, and not just talk about the people and their history or their culture. And so this project, the REACH project, took place in a very interesting moment. And where I tried to visit the three museums, we chose three museums, and we wanted to know what kind of participatory activities do they implement, and how do they do it, and with whom, and how are the circumstances of the people, of the institutions, and also the further framework of the work. And we choose three museums, two little museums, two more local museums who are more appealing at people from the region, and another one, a big museum in Berlin, that is the Museum for Islamic Art, that is appealing more to international audiences. And so we get very different addresses, very different circumstances of work, different collections we have to consider, different possibility to interact, or necessities as well to interact with the audience. And another difference is that these three museums, two are public museums and one is run by association. So we see a very complex, interrelated network of interaction and possibilities of interaction. So I visited these museums, and we had talks together with the participants, but also with the staff, of course. And I had the possibility to participate in some actions of them. That was my approach.
That's great. Thank you, Frida. And so obviously there's within the 3 case study museums, there's a range of different organizations, different institutional structures, especially in terms of participation. You were saying about the different structures, that the different museums and obviously the different collections that were being used. Could you tell us a little bit more about the different participatory activities that were going on in these 3 museums, and maybe just tell us again what the 3 museums are and what they do, what their collections are.
Yeah, it becomes clear in this pilot that participatory activities are realized in very different areas of the museum, that the museum has a lot of possibilities to interact with the public, to involve the public in the audience. So we could see actions of content exploration, we could see reuse of collections, we could see guided tours, or also the implementation of further involvement in forms of other customer services or maintenance of the collection, documentation, and so on. So actually we saw in any part or every part of the museum work we could find participatory activities. And the 3 museums are first the Industry- und Filmmuseum in Wolfen, Industry and Film Museum. The second is the House of History, Haus der Geschichte in Wittenberg, and the third Museum of Islamic Art. So at the Industry and Film Museum, they realize a project or event, a series of events. It is called Picture Show, Bilderschau, and they invite people to explore their photo collection. And the very special thing of this is that this museum comes from an association which was working on the former factory of films, of raw film material. And because this museum grew from the history of this factory, because the factory was closed down after the change 19. And so now they gather the former worker from this factory to document their collection, because they have almost no information about the photos, and so the photos get enriched with many data, and this interaction without this interaction, this collection would be useless for the museum and more for the people, for the audience. So we see that through the interaction and the gathering of information, this collection get relevant for the participants as well, because they are reflecting their history, their life, and they can meet and talk and exchange about their experiences. And they see also that their experiences is valuable for the institution, and not just for the institution, but also for the audience and for the public. So this is the key point of this project is it is a very emotional and social activity, because they lost their work, they lost their social network through the changes in these times, and now they are asked again to contribute, to be active part in this community right now, and to appreciate the work of their life. And by this, not just the museum get a new support by these people, but also the people get support by the museum. So they support each other, appreciate each other, and support for further developments. And actually, well, this study took place a year ago, and now they are creating new exhibition, and they took this participatory part of the Bilderschau into the new creation of the exhibition, and wanted to involve also the experience and the needs and the wishes of the former worker, to show more history, more perspectives, and thinking that this may also appeal the audience. And by this, we can see through the interaction between the people, their community is strengthened, and it's already this example shows that the social benefit is very high, and not just for the participants, also for the institution and the community of Wolfen. And so they use their collections as a starting point for this interaction. And it showed that it was very valuable. Yes, and the other little museum is the Haus der Geschichte, House of History. And they use, this is the institution that is run by the association, and they use a governmental program of volunteering. And here, with this use of this program, the museum tried to make a social contribution, because they involve people to get engaged in the institution. And on the other side, these volunteers help as well to maintain the museum and to realize museum work, because where the funding is not that sure, or not like at the public museums, so they need the support of the volunteers to realize the museum work. And there we can find the activity in very different fields. But it's not just this running point of the museum, it's also that they are also experts of the history, because the Haus der Geschichte is dealing with the history from the 20th century, and especially the second half. So these volunteers are experts themselves, and they can talk to the public, can talk to the audience, and provide their history and their perspective also. And by this museum also get a multi-perspective program, and can provide more histories. And so what is very interesting as well, that and was shown in this example, that this interaction of laymen and of the audience is very important too, because very often the museum are seen like a strange place, not common to the people. And so with the involvement of laymen in their work, the interaction with the public is changing also. It was shown in this pilot. And the relationship between the institution and the audience can change by this very strongly. And here we see also that this program, or this project, has a strong social and emotional support, because very often the people volunteering are in very difficult situations, and so the work at the institutions help them to find a new network and to find good work and routine. So we see once again this action provides social cohesion, and it also provides emotional support. And here it's not more the collection, the starting point for this development of emotions, rather it is the engagement itself, the interaction with other volunteers, and the interaction with the public and the museum. And the third museum, it's the big one, it's a Museum of Islamic Art. They try to involve a more diverse audience. For this they go outside their premises, and they realize many outreach projects with mosque communities, with youth, from youth clubs. So they try to address or to appear the people who are seldom considered in museum or in history, and they want to include their perspective and their experience also. And so they make guided tours who are focus more on dialogue, not on presentation, but the dialogue is very central in this museum, the dialogue and the exchange of experiences and ideas. And they go to the youth club and use their collection to think about current issues like identity, cultural identity, integration, migration, very important issues nowadays. And on the other side, they also want to renew the exhibition, because they realize that the exhibition, the communication inside the exhibition is very often a little bit difficult for people who are not used to go to museums or are not used to deal with such cultures. So they try to make it more appealing, to provide access to a more broad audience. And here as well, they use a collection, but also the exhibition, to provide access to this knowledge, to this culture. And in this museum, also the focus is on the intercultural interchange of ideas, of histories, of memories, of experience. So with their projects, they try very hard or very strong to make a contribution to the current situation here in the society right now. And by this, they can show that the collection is very important. It's an old collection, yeah, very old, but they show you can discuss current issues with it. And so they show that these collections are still relevant for us to ask and to find answers together. And that's the important point, interaction and the relevance of the collection. Yeah.
I think that's great, because what really comes up from hearing about those three different museums in very different ways is the theme of social cohesion and the construction of identity, and also the idea of dialogues and encounters through collections or through working within the institution and with the community, out between institution, community, and participation, that sound, you know, really successful examples of that in those three case studies. But I wondered what learning points or challenges as well have come up in terms of this participatory work through the pilots.
Yeah, well, very often the participatory activities are projects. That's a very challenging point, a very important point, because this project provides money just for short term, and actually it's framing too at the same time. And so the project, it includes that the staff is just working for this project, and when they are leaving with all the experience, and the connection between the normal museum work and the project, there's a division, and it's very hard to bridge this. And as well, participation needs a lot of effort, a lot of time to get trust, to build responsibility, mutual responsibility, and to create something together. And if you have every time these projects, it's very difficult. It's the same actually with this volunteering program, because the volunteers are working just for 60 months, more or less. So they are coming and leaving, and all the experience, all the expertise is going away constantly. That's a very big problem. And the other challenging thing came out that it is very important that we see it as a complex network. It's not the museum which tries to involve the people. It's also, we have to consider the people themselves, that there are possibilities to get involved, their interests as well. So, and the third partner would be the administration or the politicians, because they have to create or provide suitable frameworks to do this job. And if you see, it's the budget is always in terms scheduled. So we have to try to diversify more the possibilities of interaction. And it means, for example, that these frameworks given by the politicians, that is okay, but we need other structures at the same time. Yeah, we need this we need more flexibility, and we need more support, constant support. Yeah, that there should be a way to consider different ways of budgeting of support, and it's the same in the institutions. They need the possibility to think spontaneous, especially in participatory activities, because then you get in situation you didn't consider before, so you need to respond, and often it's not possible because the framework of the project doesn't allow it. So we need more flexibility and more diversity in this, and we need especially that we need also that with the framework, concerning the framework, we need also the possibilities to make mistakes, to get failures, because we can't say at the beginning how it works and what comes out at the end, because participation is also an open-end process. So there's a contradiction between programs, projects, and really participation or really interaction between people.
So you mentioned there's something really important, Frida, in terms of the different frameworks that are in play, to do with something that we've looked at a lot in REACH is the idea of bottom-up approaches for participation versus top-down approaches coming from an institutional framework or from the wider socio-political framework. But obviously these frameworks are in play and they're really important, and the interaction and dialogue between the different players is really important. Could you speak a little bit more to that then in terms of the pilot case studies?
Where this top-down or bottom-up approach, there are concepts very much discussed in REACH 2, and I think, well, it's very difficult to talk about this in the context of museums, because we have such a great spectrum of museums, and we have museums that are run by associations, so they are working different with the people. They are the people, they are running the museums, so they have another interaction with themselves. Other institutions are maybe bigger, more institutionalized. And maybe they look as well like more far from the reality, or not like interested in the people, or like authoritarian or old-fashioned. But I think, well, actually we have to think museums also not just like a monolith. There are people working there, and they are modern people like us, and they have needs. They know the needs of the people. So it's not like the institution and the people. No, the institution is built or formed by people. So this is very important to consider as well. And I see it more, I don't want to see these differences, top down, bottom up. I see it more like a exchange, a dialogue between the different players. And it's not just the institution and the people, but also the politicians take part in this negotiation. And so I think all parties have to learn how to give up some traditional power, or to change their communities communication style, and they have to reconsider their own needs and requirements and wishes, but also from the other part. Yeah, and I think it's more like a dialogue. It's more like a learning process of all the sides of the participations, and that's a negotiation, because that's why I referred to, when I talked about the cultural heritage, that the institution itself is also cultural heritage. Mm-hmm. It's negotiable. Mm-hmm. So it will be the result, how the institution will be, the result of the interaction and communication between the different players.
I think that idea of dialogue encounter is obviously really very, very important, and that idea of negotiation in terms of that openness and that reach. But something that strikes me as well by what you said there is also the idea of adaptability, or the openness to change, and that makes me think also of, you know, the resilience factor, you know, how resilient an institution is, because, you know, adaptability is part of resilience. And obviously you spoke earlier about the icon definition. So museums, when you were undertaking the pilot, were at this critical juncture in terms of how they self-critique and define themselves. But obviously since the pilot ended, we're at another critical juncture because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that obviously is calling the institutions even more towards a resilience, or in terms of sustainability, and how participation might change or adapt or diversify because of the physical situation that we're in, with the museums having to close for a period of time. And so I wondered if you've been able to speak to the museums since the pandemic to find out a little bit more about how they're forging forwards.
Yeah, I had the luck to go back to the colleagues and to talk with them again, or to them again. And where the pandemic brought a very difficult situation for the museums, because, well, they had to close long time. The Museum for Islamic Art, for example, just opened this week. But they used the time of to develop further their programs. Yeah, and they looked for possibilities or solutions in the digital sphere. But what came very clear, or what is very clear in this situation, is that the physical meeting point, you know, like in Multaka, the subtitle of Multaka's Meeting Point Museum. So it came out that this physical interaction, this physical encounters at a place, at a safe place in a certain way, is very important, and this disappeared completely, and there were no possibilities, and until now the situation is very unsure how to go on. And yes, with the resilience, as we talked about the relevance of cultural heritage, it shows that resilience is also concerning very different parts. Yeah, it's concerning the collection, the cultural heritage, it's concerning the institution and the people themselves. So for the collection, this situation can be good as well, because maybe the digital possibilities now enable more access to the collections. Yep, and they could be used in different ways, and could be stay part of the discussion. But for sure, it's that to stay part, or to stay an issue, or remain an issue in the discussion, you need the discussion and the interaction, and that is missing. So it's very difficult, because as well you can discuss about internet, you can chat, but it's not the same interaction like in live and the direct encounter with new ideas, with new possibilities of action, with new impressions. And so for the institution, it's also difficult, because it's, from the financial point, it's very catastrophic, the situation. So they can't, or the possibilities to develop, to extend their activities is reduced as well. And and if they want to be relevant, to be sustainable, they have to remain in the communities as a partner, as an interlocutor. But it's difficult if you're close, and or if you just can interact on a very small scale with the people. and to the communities where it came out in the pilot as well, that the institution can be very important for the communities to remain resilient, because in this way they can get a stronger partner to communicate or to address their needs and to show themselves and to be visible as well. And here we see once again that the COVID situation makes it very difficult to support this very important work as well. And there are not so many solutions at the moment. We will see.
Yeah, it's a difficult juncture, but certainly a juncture that provides, in some ways, a possibility for becoming resilient in terms of both the institution, the community, and cultural heritage itself. And I think that the idea of interaction between those different players is really, really important, and we should remain with that. So I think that's a good place to close our chat today, Frida. And just thank you very much for sharing the pilot findings. Thank you.
Please. Thank you. I think, Marie-Louise.